Hello, welcome to week 4 of social policy. And this week we're going to do things a little different. So there's going to be no test this week. And I'm just going to run through what I expect because we're going to start working on our paper. So this week we're going to continue discussing the origins and development of the social work profession. So you're going to continue your discussion from last week. So remember to log on at least 3 different days to answer the posts. And then there's 3 videos with Robert Reich doing interviews with the Goldman School of Public Policy at Berkeley. And Larry Rosenthal is allowing me to use their videos that they use for their social policy class for this class. And so you're going to be able to watch Robert Reich do an interview, and there's going to be a Dropbox assignment on his answers. So he does a pretty short interview. I think the whole thing is about a total of less than 20 minutes, but he gives a ton of information out in it. So there's going to be a few questions I want you to answer with at least a 1 or 2 paragraph answer. Then again, I want you to do an initial discussion post for discussion 3.2 by Sunday at midnight. Again, don't respond to this until next week. And then we're going to look at a social policy that you would like to improve. So we're going to start working on your paper. And again, I will have a Dropbox up. I probably won't get it up tonight. I went and got sick, and so I'll probably get it up tomorrow morning. But in looking at this section here, I'll just go through with you what we're doing once the computer catches up. Okay, so as you watch these 3 videos, it might help to write down these questions and take some notes. He in his short videos he goes through a lot of information, so he goes over numerous cases and uses these to explain how social policy can address a social problem. And he has some very interesting insight, and I always find things from him. Every time I listen to him, I find something new to discuss. So he's very interesting. I'm sure you'll enjoy it. Then there's the paper. So we're going to work on this paper incrementally, and this is a term you hear in politics a lot. Sometimes people get upset with incremental ideas, but it's actually the way business gets done in government. So we're going to do our paper incrementally too. So our first section of the paper, it's just a starting point. So I want you to just start writing. It doesn't have to be perfect, but I want some thoughts going on paper. And that way you can expand this and have a finished project without much work. So first you're going to identify a social problem that has been addressed by a social policy. So find one you want to research and see how a social problem is addressed. Then I want you to discuss the history of that social problem. So try to find any previous attempts to ameliorate the problem that you may know of. So if you cannot identify any attempts to deal with this problem, just simply state that you're unaware of any attempts at this time to fix it. And then last, do a paragraph or two identifying the social policy that addresses this problem. And this is a policy that you're going to focus on for your paper. This is not going to be a very long paper, but later on I'm going to have you analyze that policy, not too in depth, but I just want you to read it over and try to find an area of weakness that you would suggest some kind of improvement to. The thing with social policy is, your work is never done. So usually once you put a policy out, there's usually consequences, good and bad, and you have to deal with those, and sometimes you have to change the policy a little bit. This could be seen with any policy that comes out. And then lastly, I want you to put an initial post to a last discussion, to another discussion for this section. So I want you to discuss how at various times in the past century the social work profession has retreated from its efforts on behalf of reform and social justice. There's times that social workers, didn't do much to stand up to being told what to do, and sometimes it wasn't in the best interest of what they were working for. So I want you to identify the periods in which this has occurred and start a discussion on what common and different factors led to these retreats. So it's important to understand this because there's different kinds of people who work in policy. Some people are dedicated towards always furthering the social good, and some people are just looking for a job. But there's also other reasons for this. Sometimes the political climate isn't safe to really fight against the situation. So I want you to look at this and discuss it. If you have any questions, go ahead and utilize the discussion forum. I do have a forum set up for general questions. So just go ahead and click on there, and you can put questions on there, and I can answer them, or maybe a classmate can get to them before I do. So otherwise, you guys are doing a great job of the discussions. I hope you're understanding how I'm doing this. I'm trying to have this class be an ongoing discussion throughout the semester. A lot of times in these online classes, you guys don't end up really having discussions. You end up just posting and moving on. I've found over time that the discussion board is an area that's really rich for content information and for demonstrating knowledge of what we're doing. So I want you to go ahead and do that and enjoy it, and it should be fun. Log on, start bouncing ideas off each other, log off again. Somebody could respond to you, and then you can have a nice thread going. You don't have to do an initial response each time you log on. I know some people are doing that. Like I said, you can carry on a conversation. That's fine. That's the point of you logging on and off for 3 different days. So again, if you have any questions, feel free to get a hold of me, or put a discussion question up, and either I or one of your classmates will get back to you. All right, thank you.